Hello everyone. The purpose of this video is to introduce the Chemicals Risk and Vulnerability Calculator, which has been developed by Pesticide Action Network UK, or PAN-UK, for the Chemicals Observatory Africa project. In this presentation, I will walk through the Excel sheet with you, including where to download it and how to fill out each sheet in order to create your calculation, and also introduce how to use MapX in order to use the calculator. The Chemicals Risk and Vulnerability Calculator provides a relative risk score for various pollutants, both point source and more diffuse. It is based on existing methodology in 3 other risk scoring systems, for example, developed by FAO, plus some new features which are offered by MapX. The purpose of the calculator is to include risk both to human population and the environment. To do this, it brings together a large number of data sets that allow new combinations of data. For example, toxicity to fish or proximity to surface water. MapX brings valuable new opportunities to visualize and combine data through its web mapping application. To download the calculator, you can go to the website chemopsafrica.org and navigate to the Risk and Vulnerability Calculator webpage. There, you can download the latest version of the calculator and the guidance manual. The manual takes you step by step through each question in the calculator. If you are unsure of the next step while you are using the calculator, check the manual. And if you are still unsure, we are happy to help. The calculator takes a source pathway receptor approach. Source meaning the quantity of the chemical and other attributes associated with the chemical at the site. Pathway meaning exposure to environment of the chemical. And receptor, which characterizes the exposed populations at the site and around the site. Once you have downloaded the calculator, you will arrive at the introduction sheet, the very first sheet in the calculator. Ensure that you have selected Enable Content. This will make sure that all of the macros and algorithms that are in the calculator are enabled. The introduction contains a short explanation of what the calculator is, including some sources and how to use it. One important note to make right away is on the data sheet, which is the last sheet in the calculator. It is important to look at this sheet and ensure that your chemical of concern is in fact there. This data sheet includes all the chemicals which are projected to be in use for this project or are commonly used around the world. If your chemical of concern is not listed here, please contact Sheila Willis at PAN-UK. The next important sheet is the site questions sheet, which is the second sheet in the calculator. This sheet describes the minimum information that is required to run the calculations. We have attempted to minimize any information that is required from a site visit, instead using publicly available data from MapX. However, all of the information here in the pink cells are what is absolutely required in order to make the calculation. A few more notes on the site questions sheet. You need to complete the site questions for every contaminated site, 1 chemical at a time. And once you have a set of completed site questions for the contaminated site, you are in fact ready to run the calculator. You should only fill in the pink cells in this sheet and throughout the whole calculator, but you must fill in every pink cell with a value. Next, we arrive to the source sheet. This is characterizing the source or the quantity of chemicals that are at the site, and this has already been filled in by your site questions information. There's no need to touch anything in this sheet. The yellow boxes contain formula, so there's no need to touch those. And the purple cells are pre-populated from previous answers. So as mentioned before, you do not need to touch anything on the source sheet. Next is the pathway sheet, which describes the pathways for exposure to chemicals. Again, we see some purple cells here, which means that these are pre-populated from other sections of the calculator, and there is absolutely no need to touch those. However, you will at some point get to a few questions where you will need to enter some data. Those have the pink cells. For example, once we arrive in the water section, PQ7 is mean annual rainfall. And perhaps you already have this information offhand or nationally available statistics, which you can put in. We recommend using that, especially if it is easy to access and is recent. But if not, You can obtain this information from MapX. As you can see in the red text there, there is a data in MapX available to help you fill out this question. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how to use MapX in order to find the information that you need to create your calculations. Just a little bit about MapX. It is optimized for the newest version of Google Chrome browsers. You can also use Internet Explorer or Firefox. We don't really recommend using other commercial browsers such as Safari. If you experience issues while using MapX, or you're having trouble loading a dataset, try refreshing your browser window or restarting the browser entirely. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me, Teresa Dearden. You can access MapX by also going to the website, chemopsafrica.org, and navigating to the National Profile section. There, you can either use the data project, which has been developed for your country if you are one of the 5 pilot countries, or you can use the Africa project if you are not in one of those 5 countries. Either one is fine. For this example, we'll be using the Tanzania project. And I just wanted to show you here quickly how you can change the language if necessary in the interface. So as you can see, we've opened it up and we're in MapX now, and I wanted to change the language to French. So it's quite simple. You can select between many different languages. This will translate the map and the interface. However, it won't translate the names of the data sets, unfortunately, as those are a manual job. In order to visualize data, you simply have to click on the button to the left of the title of any data set that you want. As you can see, we've organized it in different categories according to the categories of the calculator. So under pathway and water, there we are with the annual mean precipitation data set. And you can click multiple data sets and just click and drag to reorder them however you'd like. So now we're looking at the TSIP data above the annual mean precipitation data. And perhaps you're using TSIP data for your calculations, or perhaps you have your own data. And there's 2 ways that you can try and find your sites using MapX. Of course, you should have the GPS location of where your site is. But perhaps you are familiar with the area and it's very easy for you to just scroll in using the scrolling buttons on your mouse and just explore until you find exactly where the site is. You can also try looking them up on Google Earth or Google Maps so that you can locate them more easily in MapX. Or, as a third option, we can help you spatialize the data and then upload it so that you can use it in MapX more easily. And in order to do that, you should send me, Teresa Dearden, an Excel sheet that looks somewhat similar to this. This is just an example, but at a bare minimum, the site should include some sort of site identification, either a unique name or a number, and the GPS coordinates. And these GPS coordinates should be in latitude and longitude in 2 separate columns in decimal degrees. There's plenty of online conversion tools which you can use if your GPS coordinates are in a different format, for example, in UTM or decimal minute seconds. If you're worried about data privacy, we can also make these data sets private to just you and your colleagues, or we can make them public. However, please inform us when you send us the data what you would like. And please only send data sets for upload when you're ready to calculate a large number of sites. So moving on from there. If you want to get the values from a data set, you can simply just go in and click. Sometimes this works very well. You'll have a little scrolling bar, and there we go. For the annual mean precipitation, the point at that location is 1,127 millimeters per year. So sometimes it's quite simple like that, and sometimes the data values don't work very well. This is not a problem on our side. This is more to do with the data provider. In this case, you can go and click on the legend and then use the legend in order to get the value that you need for your site. Or again, perhaps you already have this information available offhand, which you can use. So that should be all that you need to know in order to use MapX quite quickly. As I said before, you can access it directly from the ChemOps Africa website. And you can go down and continue to fill in the pink cells in the pathway sheet using the data from MapX. And you can see in the red, we have put the names of the data sets. You can search for those in the project that you are using, or you can navigate to them by going through the categories, which are organized according to the categories in the calculator. Now, if you are not working with one of the 5 pilot countries, and you're using the Chemicals Observatory Africa project, you will need to find the answers to 2 questions by yourself, because we've only calculated these 2 data sets for the pilot countries. One is PQ16, which is type of public facility within 100 meters. Perhaps you have this data, or if not, I would recommend using OpenStreetMap. You can get a lot of information on public facilities there. And PQ17, which is the site in an area prone to natural disasters? Again, you will have to find this information yourself through your own means. However, we can still help you with spatializing your sites, whether you are in a pilot country or not. So, now we have gone through the source questions, we have gone through the pathway, and finally we will talk a little bit about the receptor sheet. Here we are characterizing the exposed populations. You may have to do some digging here to find some information. RQ1 is again purple cells, so you don't need to touch those. And then we have some questions on the area of your site and population density per kilometer squared. We've added some sources that you could explore in order to find this information. For the area of your site, you could try using Google Earth or Google Maps. For the population density, there's pretty good data available from the World Bank, or perhaps you have nationally available statistics which are more accurate. And once we have finished with the receptor sheet, we can finally move on to the calculator itself. So at the number 1, you can select your chemical of concern, and this will automatically calculate based on the chemicals data sheet and also the information that you have input. Once this has been calculated, you can press the Add to Summary Results tab, and then this will be added to the Summary Results sheet, which we'll talk about in a second here. So this is what the calculator looks like, and this is just an example, but as you can see, there are 2 separate scores, one for relative risk to human health and one for relative risk to environment. And this is using all of the data that you have input into the calculator up until this time. Now, perhaps this is obvious, but because these scores are relative, the real value of this calculator comes from performing the calculations at multiple sites with multiple chemicals. Thus, we can start to get into the site prioritization part of this project. If you need to add multiple chemicals to one site, we'd recommend first saving a copy of your first site information sheet for your own records. This is just good data management practice in case you need to go back and make a correction. Perhaps you can start using a suffix such as the date and your name of the calculation in the site name or the chemical. And then all you need to do is to go back and change the information about the chemical in the site questions sheet. The remaining information in the pathway and receptor sheets should stay the same, as it is the same site, so you can leave them alone. Next, after you select the chemical in your calculator, you just need to save the new risk scores, and these will be added to the Summary Results tab. In the Summary Results tab, you will see there is an example in the first 3 rows. You can delete these, but this is also just showing you what an example can look like. And the cumulative site scores, which are the red numbers, will be graphed automatically on the right to show comparative values between sites. Now we have added spaces for 5 different chemicals in each site. If you have more than that, you'll have to add some rows. If you have less than that, you'll need to delete some rows. But the macro that we have enabled there will keep adding. Once you press that button in the calculator sheet, it'll keep adding to the Summary Results tab from whatever you want to calculate. Now you can export this as a PDF for a summary of your results and then input this directly into your report. So in this example, the calculations for this site have been completed. It had 5 chemicals and the total site scores are summed up there. Before you start working on the next site, do save your worksheets in a separate file with the site name as the file name. For example, site information, pathway, receptor, and final calculation. This will save a lot of time if you need to correct or update information about one of your sites. And finally, I just wanted to show you another feature of MapX, which is the map composer, in case you wanted to make a map to put into your report, which I highly recommend. So you can choose to add satellite imagery by using that aerial button if you like. But the map composer button, you just activate the views you want, you click the button, and here we have an example of what it looks like. So it's quite easy and intuitive to use. All you need to do is select the views, click the button. It'll come up with all these different aspects, which you can customize the size of. You can put the legend in there. You can customize the text that is already available there. You can create a title. You can style it however you like using the controls that are on the right-hand side. And you can preview it and then control the size of it by using the buttons that are on the left-hand side. And then all you need to do is press export image, and it'll automatically begin a download to your computer. And that's it, you'll have a map. Which you can put into the report, and this will be very useful for us to review results. So the next steps for the calculator are to collect the results from everyone that is working on this project, and then alongside the economic calculator, we want to display the results in interactive dashboards on the website. And this is going to be so useful for fundraising and for showing donors what we have been up to over the past few years. Once you have this information available, so once you've completed a few different calculations on both the economic calculator and the relative risk and vulnerability calculator, I would recommend sending it to me, Teresa Dearden, or Sheila Willis at Pan UK, so that we can review it, provide any comments if necessary, and then start to aggregate these results, hopefully by the end of September 2020. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact one of us. Our emails are here, or you can also look at the website and see if you can find an answer to your question there. Thank you and bye.